What if you could have a career where the opportunities are as vast as our nation, where it's not about mission statements, but a shared mission? At U.S. Customs and Border Protection, we go beyond to protect more than borders. From ship to shore, air to ground, cities to local communities, CBP agents and officers are keeping people safe. Join U.S. Customs and Border Protection and go beyond for something far greater than yourself. Learn more at cbp.gov/careers.
Good afternoon. Let's do some business. We are doing it live right here, doing more at 4 weekday afternoons. We get right down to business, a news-driven hour after Ben Shapiro. And just before the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang at 5. Mottek On Money, live on the air now, 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com. And your on-demand Mottek On Money podcast, kbc.com, Apple, iTunes, and all your favorite podcast platforms. Well, fireworks before and after the 4th of July holiday weekend this year. Stocks ending mostly higher today. Coming off the weekend, it was a 4-day weekend for a lot of the folks, and the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ each scored new record high closes today. The market focusing on Fed Chairman Jerome Powell this week. He'll be giving congressional testimony starting tomorrow, and also we'll be getting a new reading on inflation that'll be closely watched later this week. The Dow coming in for a closing loss of 31 points. The S&P 500, though, ending in the plus column of 6 points, good enough for a record high. It's the S&P 500's 35th record high close of the year. And the NASDAQ went up 51 points to settle at 18,404. That is a record high, and the NASDAQ's 25th record high close of 2024. We did see the small cap gauge, by the way, also move up. The Russell 2K small cap moved up, outperforming both the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ today. That's something rarely seen this year. Nike in the spotlight, just not doing it today. As far as the stock is concerned, Nike dropped sharply to become the worst performing stock in the Dow, dragging down the blue chip index, which ended lower by 31 points today. Bond market also in focus, with the yields on the 10-year note hitting the lowest levels we've seen in about a week, now at 4.27%. That's the one that impacts the fixed rate mortgage rates out there. Looks like we'll be getting the new reading on consumer prices. That'll be coming out on Thursday. On Friday, we got the latest jobs report. The job growth slowed to a still healthy pace in June, with the unemployment rate rising to 4.1%, now increasing the chances that the Fed will be able to try to tame inflation without tipping the economy into recession. We'll talk more about that here in just a moment. Fed Chairman Jerome Powell's semi-annual testimony to Congress will start tomorrow. He'll be appearing on Capitol Hill tomorrow and again on Wednesday. And gold today settled down to $2,363.50 an ounce, down a whopping $34 and change, the biggest single session drop for gold since, June 21st. Prices settled on Friday at $2,397.70, the highest finish since May 21st. The price of oil back in focus, of course, with the Middle East turmoil continuing. Oil prices settling lower by about 1% to a one-week low today. Hurricane Beryl taking the spotlight now in the energy markets. It's shut down U.S. refineries and ports along the Gulf of Mexico. And oil also under pressure on hopes of a possible ceasefire deal in Gaza, possibly reducing worries about global crude supply disruptions. Brent crude in London, the global benchmark, closed down 79 cents to 85.75 a barrel. And oil in New York, the West Texas Intermediate, down 83 cents to settle at 82.33 a barrel. Hurricane Beryl lashing Texas with strong winds and heavy rainfall, and oil ports closed in that area. Hundreds of flights have been canceled, and about nearly 3 million homes and businesses lost power in Texas. Big news in Hollywood. Paramount Global has agreed to merge with Skydance. This is after months-long negotiations. This deal could see the Redstone family step away from control of Paramount as well as CBS. Paramount Global nowadays, the parent company of Paramount Studios as well as CBS. Paramount Special Committee signed off on the deal over the weekend after Shari Redstone's National Amusements, which is the controlling shareholder of Paramount, once again reached a preliminary deal with Skydance, the production company known for Top Gun Maverick, and a similar deal had weeks earlier been stopped in its tracks. We did see Paramount Global shares, by the way, move lower by 63 cents to $11.18 a share. Paramount's Class A shareholders in this deal will get $23 apiece in cash or stock, while Class B stockholders, the one I just quoted, will receive $15 per share, equating to a cash consideration totaling $4.5 billion available to public shareholders. A renowned celebrity chef and restaurateur now vowing to never open another business here in California unless lawmakers address crime and other issues impacting businesses here in the state. I'll talk about it. I'll talk about that with the chef, Chef Andrew Gruel, the star of Food Truck Face-Off on the Food Network. He'll be joining me live later this hour. And the new Los Angeles homeless count came out recently, showing the official homeless number down slightly by about 200, but still at or near record highs above 75,000. And anecdotally, still looking pretty bad out there, especially when it comes to homeless families in L.A. I'll talk about what's really happening out there with Soledad Ursua, Venice Neighborhood Council Board member. But first, on your money, the markets, the economy, and the whole works now. Joining us live, money manager Gabriel Wisdom, managing director at American Money Management, based here in Southern California, also author of Wisdom on Value Investing. Gabriel Wisdom, thank you very much for taking the call. Hope you had a great 4th of July holiday weekend.
You as well, Frank, and everybody who's listening. You know, the third quarter of the year is seasonally a turbulent period for markets. And we've got a lot to be concerned about right now. The U.S. presidential campaign, corporate earnings, the Federal Reserve policy. We'll be hearing about that this week, as you mentioned. But the fact remains that earnings might easily continue to compound at a 15% annual rate if the economy keeps chugging along and you get maybe an interest rate reduction or two. And, of course, some of the enthusiasm around artificial intelligence pans out, it's becoming real. If you take a 15% annual rate of return and you try to figure how long does it take to double your money at 15% a year, the rule of 72, divide 72 rather by 15, and I get 4.8. So markets could certainly be higher in 4.5 to 5 years.
All right. Thanks for getting the calculator out on that one. And, of course, the presidential election also very much in focus. We heard from the incumbent today saying he's going to hang in there. And there was expected to be perhaps a big announcement today on all of that. And it looks like it's going to be an interesting week as we go along here. President Trump, of course, still leading in the polls here at this point following the current president's debate performance about a week or so ago. Why don't you size that up for us, and what kind of market reaction have we seen since that debate, and how does this play out in an election year with so much uncertainty out there?
Well, you know, Frank, there's an ingrained bullish sentiment around the tech stocks, and, of course, a very strong outlook for profits, even in the face of what is an unprecedented, range of concerns about the incumbent president and the state of affairs. If we look at the election cycle's next few events, including the Republican National Convention, which is coming up, I believe, July 15, isn't it, Milwaukee? And the Democratic National Convention occurs in August in Chicago, and there's another presidential debate, so they say, September 12th. It's going to get just more and more interesting. I'd say the biggest risk isn't the presidential election to the economy. It's the Federal Reserve and whether they managed to engineer a soft landing.
On there live with money manager Gabriel Wisdom. You're right. The Republican convention does start on July 15th. And, let me ask you about the Fed chairman who's going to be taking his spot in the spotlight tomorrow on Capitol Hill. He'll be appearing tomorrow and Wednesday. What do you expect to hear from the Fed chairman?
I expect that he's going to say that they're still waiting. In other words, the Fed is, when they've said they prefer to see inflation at 2%, we're not there. It might be a few months before they start cutting rates. They're under enormous political pressure from both sides to either leave rates alone so that the economy doesn't change or maybe weakens, or reduce rates so that we get a happy days or here again a big rally for the Democrats. But the fact remains that the Fed might be making a mistake rushing to cut the federal funds rate before we hit that 2% inflation. And by the way, higher interest rates, which are supposed to slow the economy, we're seeing now strong evidence that higher interest rates are helping by giving savers more money to spend. In fact, at today's rates, the difference between what it costs to service a mortgage, especially if you locked in the old 30-year rates of last year, that difference translates to a net gain for households of about $400 billion a year, according to Greenlight Capital's David Einhorn, who crunched the numbers.
Very interesting. And it should also be noted, former President Trump has indicated he would not reappoint Fed Chairman Jerome Powell, who he did appoint. He would not reappoint Powell as Fed chair in a second Trump term, by the way. So that is something to consider here. President Trump had appointed Powell following the tenure of Janet Yellen.
Well, that's right. But the former president does change his mind. Yeah, I think he made a good decision, honestly, with Jerome Powell. He's done an excellent job of engineering bringing back some support for the dollar, creating some resistance to cryptocurrencies as an alternative. In fact, they've continued to be soft these last couple of weeks for a number of reasons. But I'd be in favor of keeping Jerome Powell. I believe he's got a couple of years left anyway.
Yep, and went through the pandemic and the whole works, of course, with President Trump. So very interesting. But President Trump did indicate he would not reappoint him if he wins this year's presidential election. We did get the new reading on jobs on Friday and getting this new inflation reading this coming Thursday. These are the two things that the Fed concentrates on based on what we might expect on Thursday on the inflation front and the number that we got on Friday. What do you think the Fed's next move on interest rates and when will be, please?
Yep, I think they're going to wait, Frank. All the uncertainty about whether the economy can maintain a balance of a gradually cooling rate of inflation and the kind of growth that we're seeing, and I mentioned how higher interest rates are actually helping by giving savers more money to spend. We're seeing it. An important change in the scene is the demographic. Huge pig in the python baby boomer generation. As the baby boomers retire, they become the biggest driver of U.S. consumption, and higher interest rates are supposed to, hurt borrowers. Still, there's some resilience in the housing market, but they certainly enrich retirees who tend to have the most savings and who account for more than 20% of consumer spending. I think Jerome Powell is well aware of all of this. I know he is.
All right. And the business of show business, a big deal. Paramount Global, parent company of Paramount Studios and CBS, in a merger deal here that was announced over the weekend, merging with Skydance after many months of negotiations and speculation. And this thing might not be over. By the way, we did see Paramount Global Class B shares move lower today, down to 63 cents to 11.18. It will be taken out at $15 a share if this all goes through. Is this the end of it, or what? Is this a slam dunk here? If you buy a Paramount Global at 11.18, that you'll be cashing out at 15?
Well, that would be an arbitrage play, but it's certainly not without a lot of risk. Skydance and David Ellison and Sherry Redstone and the board of Paramount, they've been talking about doing a deal now for some 7 months. And prior to that, Warner Brothers Discovery was involved in talks, serious talks for a merger, and that didn't go. All of these streaming services, relative to the total number of paying customers, have seen a major squeeze. Now, can David Ellison turn it around? I think it's a great deal for them, honestly. It's mostly an all-stock deal. Skydance already has a 15-year history. I think you mentioned it. As a co-finance partner with Paramount. David Ellison, by the way, is the son of Larry Ellison, the founder of Oracle, and we know Sherry Redstone comes from none other than Sumner Redstone. So the kids are taking over here.
Very good observation there. And what about the cryptos? A rough weekend for the cryptos. I know you keep an eye on that. We talked to the biggest fans as well as the harshest critics. I know you're an observer of what's happening, but we see a Bitcoin back down to around 56,000 or so here. What do you make of what's happening in the crypto space here?
Frank, there's been a crypto Trump trade of sorts because former President Trump has, said that he's in favor of seeing Bitcoin and crypto gain more ground. However, the fundamental laws of supply and demand right now are weighing on Bitcoin and on all the tokens. What's happened is a portion of many of these big projects' tokens is becoming unlocked this year, which means that the venture capitalists and the founders who got involved in these deals can now sell their digital assets, and they are poised to sell. Additionally, there's a German government Silk Road, Mt. Cox Bitcoin, an underworld deal. So they're going to be selling a lot of Bitcoin. There's a supply overhang coupled with the monthly unlocks that I mentioned with the venture coins. So if you want to buy Bitcoin and the others, it might be a buying opportunity. At least there are more sellers than buyers right now.
Very interesting. We've been talking to some of the crypto experts, including John Najarian, who's noted what's been happening with these Mt. Gox payouts and now the German government's transfer of Bitcoin to crypto exchanges, rattling the markets recently. So we will continue to follow that very closely. In the meantime, good old gold has made a move on the downside as well, down big today, down more than $34. What's happening there with gold?
I think it's just more sellers than buyers today, Frank. There's been a lot of new debt creation, both public and private. The amount of total debt exceeds some $300 trillion. That's some 3 times global gross domestic product. I don't believe we've ever had a debt to GDP ratio that's that high. And so gold is a real kind of storehouse of value. We've seen central banks in recent years accumulating gold. I think we'll see more of it.
All right. At this point, Gabriel Wisdom, where are you putting money now and or taking it off the table?
Frank, there was a research piece recently. The Atlantic came out with a more popular version of it, which showed that every time you put a picture on Instagram or you send an email or you post anything on the internet, you've basically turned on a light bulb forever. And so more and more energy is needed in the surge of AI and electric cars, the ripple effects. And so I like suddenly the utilities. I'm looking very seriously at those that support the data centers. Sempra Energy down here in Southern California, symbol SRE, is investing in transmission and distribution infrastructure to support the data center growth in Texas, and they will be expanding. Goldman Sachs is predicting that data centers will make up about 8% of total U.S. power demand within 6 years. That's up from 3% right now. So there's XL, there's Next Extra Energy, there's Southern Company, SO, Sempra, as I mentioned. These all look kind of interesting right now. At least I'm exploring.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for covering all the bases today. We've been speaking to money manager Gabriel Wisdom, managing director of American Money Management, based here in Southern California, also author of Wisdom on Value Investing. Gabriel Wisdom, thank you very much for coming to the line this afternoon.
Thank you, Frank.
Right out to the freeways now, 790 KABC. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KABC. Good afternoon. Fireworks after the 4th of July holiday weekend for both the S&P and the NASDAQ, closing at record highs to kick off the new week today. The NASDAQ powering up 51 points at 18,404. The S&P 500 up 6 to a record high close, 5,573. The Dow, though, lower by 31 at 39,343. Apple moving higher today, up $1.48 to $227.82. NVIDIA, the Magnificent One, also popping at more than $2 at $128 and change. We see Paramount Global shares, Class B shares, down 63 cents to $11.18 following the announcement of this big merger deal involving Paramount Global and Skydance. Paramount, of course, the parent company of Paramount Studios, as well as CBS. And another big merger deal announced today as well. Let's see if we can bring that up. Well, we've got merger deals starting to happen again these days, so that's pretty interesting. And we'll be talking more about that as well. In the meantime, we see Bitcoin up 185 now at 56,679. Ethereum up 28 at 3,026. And Doge at the moment at 11 cents. The yield in the 10-year note now at 4.28%. Looks like bond yields did ease today ahead of Fed Chairman Jerome Powell's testimony before Congress. First thing tomorrow. You'll be on Capitol Hill tomorrow as well as Wednesday, talking about the state of the economy. His semi-annual testimony to Congress set for tomorrow and Wednesday. And he'll be taking in the latest readings on the economy, including what we got on Friday with the jobs report. Job growth slowing to a still healthy pace in June. The unemployment rate, though, did rise to 4.1%. We'll be getting the latest reading on inflation at the consumer level. That'll be coming out on Thursday. The 12-month headline CPI rate, the Consumer Price Index rate for June, is expected to come in close to 3.1%. And that, of course, would be higher than the Fed's 2% target. So Fed Chairman Jerome Powell covering a lot of ground tomorrow in his testimony on Capitol Hill. But right now, the latest news for you here on 790 KABC. Mottek On Money continues here on 790 KABC. Good afternoon. We did have another merger deal to tell you about, this one involving Los Angeles-based B. Riley Financial, today announcing it's acquired the assets of Interface Consulting International, a leading engineering and construction consulting and expert services firm. Interface Consulting specializes in troubled projects, from providing in-depth analysis and expert testimony in litigation, arbitration, mediation, and disputes to protect planning, guidance, and execution. B. Riley Financial, based here in Southern California. B. Riley Financial shares slipped 6 cents at $14.49. We've been watching what's happening in the crypto space with Bitcoin retaking 57,000 today, causing $160 million in Bitcoin liquidations, according to our friends at Decrypt. Been reporting this today. Bitcoin retaking 57,000 earlier after slipping below 55,000 just a few hours earlier. The volatile start to the week, according to Decrypt, has seen about $160 million worth of Bitcoin liquidations take place. The industry's leading cryptocurrency fell to 54,600 in the early hours today, but climbed 4% to 57,000 in the 10 hours that followed. Right now, as I mentioned, Bitcoin is hovering at around 56,679. Looks like over the past 24 hours, approximately $102 million in Bitcoin short positions were liquidated, according to CoinGlass, with an additional $57 million in long positions also liquidating. During the same time frame, Ethereum only saw $63 million of liquidations as it retook $3,000. Ethereum right now hovering at around $3,026. Bitcoin's volatile price moves lately is coming as significant selling pressure mounts on the market due to the German government offloading its Bitcoin, while 127,000 creditors await crypto funds from the Mt. Gox bankruptcy estate. Those are the two major factors impacting the crypto world, as we recently discussed with our friend John Najarian, who has the laser eyes on, especially on the Mt. Gox situation. He flagged that for us already a couple of weeks ago. Today, the German government moved thousands of Bitcoins to exchanges including Kraken, Coinbase, and Bitstamp, according to one report. In addition, it sent funds to a number of unknown wallets and finance firms, including Flow Traders and Cumberland DRW. This according to Decrypt.com. Now, in recent days, the German government has been moving Bitcoin, seized as the result of criminal cases, onto crypto exchanges, causing the leading crypto's price, Bitcoin, to plummet and prompting critics to voice concerns over that government strategy. Despite these recent moves, addresses linked to the German government currently hold over $1.8 billion worth of Bitcoin, according to one report. Now, alongside of this, defunct exchange Mt. Gox has started to transfer billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin as it prepares to repay creditors. The firm currently holds $7.9 billion worth of Bitcoin in its wallet, according to Arkham intelligence data, which many believe could be sold once sent to creditors that have been out of pocket for the last 10 years. All of this putting downward pressure on Bitcoin. Now, experts believe that the significant sell pressure mounted by Mt. Gox sales and German offloading will likely mark the Bitcoin's bottom. According to Decrypt.co, in spite of this, U.S. Bitcoin ETF saw inflows of 14.3 million over the weekend, according to CoinGlass, while Hong Kong Bitcoin ETFs saw a zero net flow. Rough week has been seen in the crypto fear and greed index, dropping to 28, indicating fear after sitting at 72 just a month ago. We continue to follow what's happening in the crypto space, given the recent sell-off in the cryptos, with with Bitcoin hovering at around 56K or so. So right now at 56,679, Ethereum is just above 3,000 at the moment, and Doge at the moment at 11 cents. All right, well, let's get now to what's happening here in California, and that is Chef Andrew Gruel is with us, renowned celebrity chef, and also restaurateur who recently been speaking out about what's happening here in California. And let's bring in Chef Gruel. Chef, thank you very much for coming to the line here this afternoon.
Thank you so much for having me, as always. I really appreciate it.
Fantastic. Of course, Andrew Gruel, also star of Food Truck Face Off on the Food Network, and you've been facing off with the state of California for some time, and we've been talking about this. Andrew Gruel, it's great to have you back with us here before a live microphone. So give us your assessment of things here at the moment, the business scene here in California.
Well, unfortunately, I hate to say this, it's only gotten worse since we last spoke, maybe a year ago. Things have piled up in regards to regulations, taxes. Crime is just getting so out of hand that, from the restaurant perspective, sales are a little bit lower because people are not going out as late, depending on the cities. The cost of doing business, insurance carriers are leaving the state, so the cost of insurance is up significantly. Seems as if during that time frame, the permitting process throughout California has gotten harder. Imagine that. There's been vague laws pushed through Congress that haven't really spelled specificity to restaurants, that have kept us somewhat in a gray area, specifically the junk fee bills. Obviously, the FAST Act, the fast food wage bill, that's had a huge effect on the restaurant industry. So overall, I would say a recipe for a not delicious cake, if you will, to use the industry pun.
Someone left the cake out in the rain, it sounds like.
Yeah, somebody pulled it too early from the oven.
Yeah, very unfortunate. And for you to say that, it must be heartbreaking for you, since I know you love California. And to have to say this, based on what's happened, it must be heartbreaking for you to do this.
Well, it is, right? I absolutely love California. I think it's a wonderful state. I think it's got beautiful resources. I think that by and large, the people here in California are good people who believe in freedom, and they believe in, the beauty of the state and keeping it clean and keeping it safe. I think that the people that we've elected have taken things a bit too far with this experiment related to both crime and maybe government overreach into our daily lives. And it's almost as if now there's a stubborn need to not necessarily admit that they were wrong, so they're doubling down on a lot of the policies. I'm in Orange County, so we are at least a bit more insulated from some of the crime, but it's coming across the border now, because what once was petty crime or just, derivative crime by virtue of homelessness or kind of letting people out on the streets through AB 109, which was the prison realignment bill, has now become much more organized in the sense of having these pockets of crime and organized crime, retail crime, theft. What it does, though, from a retail perspective and a business perspective, is it kind of degrades that moral fabric that we know that drives business. So from the restaurant perspective, I used to see no dine and dash customers. Now I see 1 to 2 a day. We've got to be a lot more serious about security and making sure that our team members are safe and walking people out to their cars at night. So it's a difficult environment.
You've had to make some tough decisions, right? Tell us about Rubio's Coastal Grill and the tough decisions you've had to make there.
Well, I'm not related to Rubio's. I spoke on that in Fox Business. My previous concept was Slapfish, which is similar to Rubio's, but I've seen that Rubio's has actually shut down all of their growth in California. And it's not just Rubio's. Blaze Pizza did the same thing. Large growing company. They moved their headquarters to Atlanta. And just without naming names, I speak to a lot of industry insiders, and there's a lot of these large multi-unit restaurant brands that have already vowed to not grow anymore in California, and in many cases to actually decrease their footprint in California. But once, this isn't just hyperbole and kind of conjecture. This is a reaction, a strategic business reaction that's specifically what we've seen in California having the highest taxes when it comes to sales tax, income tax, now the new gas tax, which is, was up July 1st. Now it's up around like solid.
Yeah, I think
morning.
Sacramento's trying to jam our signal here, but no, I appreciate your assessment here, and many restaurateurs are expressing similar sentiments, including the folks there at Rubio's, and for you to, I don't know if anyone did not see that excellent write-up in the New York Post over the weekend where you are quoted, I would certainly invite people to check that out, where you have blasted what's happening here in California on the crime front, and vowing never to open another business here in the state until lawmakers fix things. So, and sadly, what is the reaction there in Orange County to that horrific crime that took place where a tourist was run over and killed?
Well, I think it's a horrible. It's a question. It's a horrible thing, and the sad thing is it a foreshadowing of more to come. Especially as I said, this organized crime crosses over into Orange County.
Well, Chef, thank you very much for taking the call live with us here. That is Chef Andrew Gruhl, renowned celebrity chef and restaurateur, also star of the food truck Face Off on the Food Network. Live with us here, Mottek On Money, 790 KBC. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KBC. Turning to crime now and homelessness. The new Los Angeles homeless count came out about a week or so ago, showing the official homeless number down slightly, down about 200, but still at or near record highs above 75,000. And anecdotally going up, especially when it comes to homeless families here in the Los Angeles area. A homeless man, meanwhile, went on a violent rampage at Santa Monica State Beach, attacking 3 women and trying to drown one of them in the Pacific Ocean. The attacks occurred recently just north of the Santa Monica Pier and south of the California Incline. Let's bring in Soledad Ursua now, Venice Neighborhood Council board member, who's keeping track of all of this. Soledad, thank you very much for taking the call on this big story here.
Hi, thank you so much for having me back on.
What's your reaction to the official homeless count, first of all?
So when we look at the numbers, what you see is that LA City and LA County officials are taking a victory lap. They're saying that for the first time in 6 years, homelessness is down, and it's quite a victory. But when you actually dig into the numbers, what you see is that they're cherry picking. So when we look at the county of LA, it fell by less than 1%. It's 0.27%. But looking at Los Angeles City, it fell by 2.2%. So that's not much. I have actually volunteered to do the point-in-time count. It's usually done on the coldest night in January. As a volunteer, you don't actually get out of the car. You're driving by, you're marking down. So how do so a lot of people have really questioned the results. Some people say they're overstated, because if you overstated, that increases funding to the homeless service providers. But many people like myself say that it's understated. So it's a very unscientific count. But we see that, especially if you're looking on Twitter, Mayor Karen Bass is, really celebrating her victory. She says that unsheltered homelessness in the city of LA is down 10%. But what she fails to say is that the increase for the city's shelter beds is up 17%. So there's a real discrepancy here, because if you ask people like me who live in Venice Beach, we live among the homeless, what we see is that people go into housing and they come right back out. And especially when you look at this past count, the weather was really in her favor. What was so crazy for the city of Los Angeles, we actually got more rain than the city of Seattle last year. So it's very easy to get homeless individuals to go into housing when it's cold and raining. But what we're seeing today, as the weather warms up, they're right back out there.
I don't know if you saw the article, I believe it was in May, in the LA Times, showing, according to the LA Times reporting, a 45% increase in homeless families in Los Angeles. Given that report and now the results of this official homeless count, there seems to be a discrepancy there as well, don't you think?
And what is so shocking to me is that people even accept this, because it is illegal and unlawful to have children living in homeless conditions. If anybody sees this, they should call child services. These families, I'm sorry, but they must be separated. We cannot have children living with homeless individuals on streets or in RVs. It is actually unlawful. And so it blows my mind that the city can even report on this without realizing how illegal it is.
That is a very important point. Speaking live to Soledad Ursua, Venice Neighborhood Council board member. In the meantime, horrific crime reports involving homeless individuals and people attacking women in Santa Monica. What's your reaction to these reports?
Yeah, I think that the last time I was on, I told you about the disturbing level of assault on women by transient men with long criminal records. The last time I was on, I told you about in the past couple months, we have witnessed assault, rape, and even murder on women in Venice and in Santa Monica. And what a lot of people don't understand is that we have this border, border here between Venice, Santa Monica. This is largely where the homeless men with long transient records and crime records have been staying. And what happened recently, just 2 weeks ago, a homeless convicted sex offender, he went on a violent rampage in Santa Monica. He attacked 3 women and even tried to drown one of them in the Pacific Ocean. And, people tell us that, we're overestimating crime, but that's not the case. I mean, just the conditions have gotten so horrible for women. And, just this past Sunday, I went for a run on the boardwalk, in the morning. And there is a group out here that distributes food to the homeless. There was about 40 to 50 men lined up. And these men were in very tough condition. They looked like they had been up all night. Some did not have shoes. They did not have, clothing on. And it's just so crazy that we continue to discount just the perpetual state of danger that our elected officials are putting us on. No woman should feel safe there. No one with children should feel safe there. And this is, Sunday and this literally happens every Sunday. So what we're seeing is that these attacks on women are escalating. And it's just a very dangerous time to be a female in Los Angeles City and even Los Angeles County.
Do you think the Supreme Court ruling, which on encampments recently, will change the situation in Santa Monica? Are they talking about that at all, or in the Venice area?
What we saw is that SCOTUS really did the right legal interpretation. They ruled that cities do have the right to regulate public space. They can enforce laws. What's interesting is that we see LA City elected officials say that this is immoral. Mayor Karen Bass did not put that on record, but she retweeted a Congress member who said that it's going to criminalize the homeless. We've seen various LA City council members say that they are worried that there will be nearby cities in LA County who will further push their homeless into LA City. But the question here is, why can't LA City just enforce their laws? Why are they so keen to keep perpetuating this? And what I have said this whole time is it's all because of the money. Follow the money. Homelessness has become a multi-billion-dollar a year effort. Even look at our own LA County homeless executive, Valicia Adams-Kellen, who makes $430,000 a year. So homelessness is just the most lucrative contract there is today, and it is unlikely that LA City and county officials will get on board to basically enforce their laws.
Soledad Ursua will continue to follow all of this with you. Soledad is with the Venice Neighborhood Council. She's a board member there. Soledad Ursua, thank you very much for taking the call live with us here on Mottek On Money on 790 KABC. Stay tuned now for the 790 KABC News Blitz with Randy Wang, 790 KABC.
The deals are on, only at Toyota. Check out the new 24 Tacoma or the half-ton Tundra. Find out more at buyatoyota.com, the official website for deals. Offer ends July 31st. Toyota, let's go places.